You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast, which is part of the Hiking Radio Network. And I'm your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. I think you guys are really going to enjoy today's episode with Danny Bernstein. To say Danny is an avid hiker is an understatement. In fact, on her blog titled Hiker to Hiker, you can find her hiking resume in the About Danny section. I've used Danny's blog as a guide to actually how I'm going to approach this interview with her as well. Danny describes herself as a hiker, hike leader, and outdoor writer. So for this interview, I think talking to her about those three attributes is the way to go. To lead us into the interview, I share a few words from Danny herself. To appreciate the outdoors and to conserve the land, you have to get out there. Hiking is the way I understand the mountains, rivers, and trees that I find on the way. I enjoy walking with others. Walking inspires talking, thinking, and sharing. Get out there. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode, and now on to Danny. All right, you guys, I am going to start off this interview, I think, with two statements. One, this interview is long overdue. I was introduced to my guest via Kate Dixon about a year ago, and you guys heard from Kate Dixon a couple episodes ago, or last episode. So this interview, first and foremost, is long overdue. And second of all, after all my research and looking into my guest, who you are going to hear from shortly, there is no way possible we are going to be able to talk about all of her hiking, but we're going to do our best. So please welcome with me to the show, long overdue, Danny Bernstein. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Jester. This is a pleasure.
Okay, I got to tell you guys, I've got a whole agenda here of what we're going to talk about, but Danny and I were just speaking, and she thought it might be good that we chat about how she actually ended up in North Carolina, which kind of kicked off what you're doing now, Danny. So let's start off with that. Tell us a little bit about who you are. And like I said, you guys, there's no way I'm going to do Danny's hiking career justice whatsoever. So I'm going to take cues from you, Danny. So let's talk about what you did before what you do now. And that's going to make sense once you go over that.
Okay. I was not I was an urban child. I grew up in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So this idea of my parents took me camping, that's not me. But, and neither was my husband. He grew up in Miami Beach. And but when we finished graduate school, moved to New Jersey, and started working, we discovered a hiking club. And we said, wow, adults do this without children? And I think I was like 22 years old or 23. And we both started working, and we went. And we had people there that was like twice our age. And we just loved it. And we couldn't keep up with these people. But we stuck with it. And
so what club was that? Was that the Appalachian Mountain Club?
Well, it became the Appalachian Mountain Club. This was a local New Jersey club, but the Appalachian Mountain Club was like the umbrella club. And as soon we joined the Appalachian Mountain Club, AMC, which is sort of like the Sierra Club of the East, and with many chapters. And we joined the New York, North Jersey chapter. And they had lots and lots of hikes. And we went hiking probably every Sunday.
And okay, so here you are. You're the urban individual. Your husband is from Miami, right? You said Miami.
Miami Beach, yes. It's
Miami Beach. He's
right.
a beach person. You're a city person. And all of a sudden you're colliding with, the AMC, the Appalachian Mountain Club, one of the largest mountain clubs that I know of, besides the club out west, the Sierra Club. And here's another thing I'm going to do with this interview, you guys, because when Danny and I spoke prior and I was trying to figure all this out, she also gave me a lot of quotes. And this is going to lead into, okay, you're members of the Appalachian Mountain Club, you're getting into hiking, you're going hiking every Sunday. And somewhere along the way, you and your husband, and my AT listeners are going to love this, decided that you were going to hike and complete the Appalachian Trail. But you said something to me. You said, well, during all this, it's a good thing we were married because the overall objective was to hike. So somewhere between joining the Appalachian Mountain Club and, completing the Appalachian Trail in 1998, how did that get started? How did you guys decide, yep, we're going to section hike the Appalachian Trail and here we go?
Well, if you live in New York, New Jersey, and there's a 3-day weekend or something like that, the club always goes north. So we went to New Hampshire and we discovered the White Mountains. And of course, the AT goes right through the White Mountains. And so we did that section of the AT, never realizing that was probably the hardest part of the AT. And this was way before personal computers or spreadsheets. And so my husband had this little box with index cards, and he kept good records of what we had done. And that is the key to section hiking. And then little by little, there was a piece in New Jersey. Oh, there was a piece in New York that was, we could do it as a day hike. And then we realized that we better make a commitment, because after that, it just got too far to drive, even for a 3-day weekend. And that's when we decided to drop all our other vacations.
I think that's the point where you told me, you said, well, that's what vacations became for, was going out and completing the Appalachian Trail,
I guess
right?
so, yes. It took us a long time, but we did. And in fact, we had a motto that said Georgia to Maine in 25 years. And that's about how long it took us.
And you completed the AT in 1998, right?
That's right.
Wow.
And when you're a section hiker, you get to see a lot of places around the trail. And when we came down here, the AT goes through Hot Springs, which is close to Asheville. And I looked around and said, there's something here. And we came back, and very important, because we weren't just hikers, we were hiking club people. And so we found the Carolina Mountain Club, which, by the way, is celebrating its 100th birthday in
phenomenal
2 years. And it was very active, just as active as the club we had left. And we thought that when they let us out of New Jersey, we would come down here, and that's what we did.
And there you are. So 25 years roughly of section hiking the Appalachian Trail. You did it. You completed it. You're AMC members. You moved to Asheville, fell in love with the area. Hot Springs. I mean, I love that place. You joined the Carolina Mountain Club. But Danny, there's a lot of hiking that has gone on, because when I look at your resume on your blog, it's unbelievable, the hiking that's on there. And here goes another quote, people. So you're also known, you also said to me, you said, oh, people ask you, you're still hiking? And then you say, what's your answer when you say that?
Well, I don't have a cute answer for that. But people have asked me that since I was 40 years old, and that was a long time ago. as if this was, well, it is a hobby. It was a hobby. My definition of a hobby is something you can't make a living off of. And so for 30 plus years, I was in computer science, way before computing was cool. That was my day job. But so hiking, you can say, and trail, we maintained a piece of the AT. That's what we did on weekends and vacations. So the list of things that you see is what we've done on vacation.
So I'm just going to read off a few of these things. I mean, it would probably take me 30 minutes to read all this stuff. I mean, okay, so I'm just going for it. So the Pembrokeshire Coast Path, the Art Loeb Trail, Grandma Gatewood Trail, the Camino Francis, I'm probably saying some of these wrong, Mount Fuji, Camino del Norte, the Dingle Way, the Kerry Way, the Norfolk Coast Path, Cotswold. You're a Smokies 900 completer, which means you have completed all 900 mile plus, of trail in the Smokies. Coast to Coast Walk, Stevenson Way, the Banks Peninsula Track. A lot of this stuff I really had to look up. I'm like, oh my God, this lady is a beast. I don't know who I'm talking to. And and one that really caught my eye before we move on, because you also completed the Mountains of Sea Trail, and I want to get into that because you did a special project for that of your own. These New Zealand Great Walks, there are on here, you have 9 New Zealand Great Walks. Speak about that a little bit.
Well, the first half of my career, I was a software developer. The second half, I taught computer science at a university. And one of the advantages of teaching at a university is you get sabbaticals. And so I knew exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to New Zealand, which is a hiker's paradise. And 1992, I went to New Zealand and learned about their great walks, which is kind of the walks where the trails are very well maintained and they're meant for visitors. I mean, everybody can go there. And so I started doing some of those. And we went back to New Zealand, sabbatical, 7 years, right? So I had another sabbatical there in 99. And by then my husband had just retired. And so I think we finished all of the 9 great walks in 99, but we went back several more times.
Wow. And you have on here, and we're going to talk about your blog here in a second, that there is a 10th Great Walk being added in 2019. So any aspirations to go back and do that 10th walk?
No, because New Zealand is wonderful. Every hiker should go there at least once, but there's so many other places to go. So, I mean, it's just interesting that there is now a 10th walk.
Well, I don't know. I have a feeling. I don't know. Based on today's blog post, I have a feeling, things, sit in your mind and you may end up back there. So who knows?
Who knows?
But yeah, so you guys, there's no way, I've said this twice or 3 times now in this episode, we could go over all of Danny's hiking. It's just not possible. She does have a blog, hiker2hiker.net. And I'm telling you right now, I have done so much research on your blog and so many readings and so many great stories and fascinating places that you've been. I'm going to recommend everybody right now, go over and take a look at your blog, join your newsletter. Whenever you write a blog, you will get an email that a new blog is out, and you just have a lot of good, what I would call educational information on there. So I guess the question I have, how long have you been maintaining a blog? When did you start that blog?
I started that blog, I believe, in 2008.
Okay.
When I was writing my second hiking book. I thought it would be a good thing to keep track of the hikes I was doing, and then it just took off from there. And it is mostly outdoors, about the outdoors. I don't write about personal stuff other than if it relates to the outdoors.
And it's great. And I mean, every
Thank you.
week, I think every week or so, you put a blog out there.
Well, I put a blog out there when I have something to say. So sometimes it's 3 times a week, and sometimes it's more than a week, but it's usually about 5 to 7 days. Yes.
Which is great. So, all right, you guys, you've already got a lot of information. You can see where Dani has hiked. You could check out her blog. But what I want to get into now for a little bit here is your hike on the Mountains of Sea Trail, because you completed the Mountains of Sea Trail over the course of a couple years. But within that, you also wrote a very, what I'm going to call, it's almost like a history book. I wish I would have read your book before I stepped on the trail, because it really is valuable. It gives you a lot of information. And your book is called The Mountains of Sea Trail Across North Carolina, Walking 1,000 Miles Through Wildness, Culture, and History. So let's go back. I guess I should ask you, why did you decide to hike the Mountains of Sea Trail?
Well, it's our trail. If you're a North Carolinian, it's our trail. And I started in 2009 and finished 2011. And I wanted to see North Carolina beyond the large cities. You know, I knew the shopping centers in Charlotte and in Raleigh. And
I don't want to know the shopping centers, but
but that's because you live in Charlotte.
yeah, true.
I wanted, this was my chance to see the state beyond the big cities, and of course it involved hiking.
And you and I also talked, the Mountains of Sea Trail, you could bike the trail, you could also paddle the trail now, but it was very important that you hike the trail because your friend that you were hiking with, she did some biking.
She did.
So talk about why it was important for you to complete the trail on foot.
Well, it was important because I was hopeless on a bike. When my friend's name is Sharon, and she lives in Charlotte, and I think you ought to interview her as well. She's, but we had done part of the Smokies 900 together. And so when she finished that, we talked about the MST, and her husband is a big, big cyclist. And she wanted to do the roads on a bike. And so I bought a bike, I tried, and this is, the mountains is really not a bike friendly to me anyway. And
Right.
Finally I said, forget it. So what we did is she was my hiking partner, literally. Every place that we hiked, that was a trail that you had to hike, we did. But as soon as we hit the asphalt, she was on a bike and I walked. I mean, not at the same time.
Right.
But I walked the trail on roads, and it really was fascinating. The small roads, the villages, the cotton fields, the tobacco fields, the people I met. It was fun.
Did it surprise you? Did you have any expectations before the hike?
Well, one of the things that the MST does is it goes through a lot of state parks. Now, in the mountains, we don't have that many state parks because there's so much federal land. But as soon as you get out of the mountains, you've got Stone Mountain and Pilot Mountain, etc., which were very interesting. And they're still steep. They're still mountains, nothing like here. But they're still mountains. And as you keep going east, there are others. And of course, the MST does not go through major cities. It goes around. And I just really enjoyed learning how we, North Carolina, how we got the land that we did for state parks.
It's very interesting. And, me doing my research as well, when I first started looking at state parks and investigating the Mountains of Sea, it's surprising how many state parks we actually have.
Yes.
In the state of North Carolina, and the various things that you could see at our state parks. Even learning, I've been to Pilot Mountain several times, but it wasn't until I started doing the 40-day hikes on the Mountains of Sea Trail that I
Uh-huh.
really learned about I'm going to say this wrong, the Sourtown Mountains and that connection from in that area, from Pilot Mountain and further east across the state, and what the top of Pilot Mountain actually means. And it's actually, full of rhododendrons. And if you drive by Pilot Mountain a certain time of year, you can see all the pink blooming. I had no idea.
Right.
So it's little things like that. And the small little towns of North Carolina that really love and embrace the trail is really where it's at for me. And the small communities, I had no idea. Lived in North Carolina since 2006. I guess I've been stuck here in Charlotte or stuck on the Appalachian Trail, on the Appalachian Trail somewhere. But there is something, because people always say, well, what is it about, the Mountains of Sea versus the AT? And I'm like, you can't compare the two whatsoever. That you just can't. I used to think you could, but you can't. It's not possible.
It's just two different types of trail. Now, the AT is a wilderness trail. You're walking most of the time in a green tunnel between two sets of trees. And if you have one view a day, it's like, ah. But the MST is more, now this is stretching it, is more like the Camino.
Okay.
In that you are going through villages, and though we don't use the word village in the US, small towns, and seeing how people live, etc. Now, the Camino has almost no greenery. It is almost all villages.
Okay.
But directionally, that's what it reminds me of.
So how did you like walking on the beach as a hike? I mean, everybody could take a stroll on the beach, but when you're hiking the Mountains of Sea Trail on the beach, that's a different story. Yeah, it's difficult.
It is. First of all, Sharon and I treated it like a hike. And I think part of our success in general is treating everything as a real hike, and not to say, oh, it's on the beach, it's going to be flat, I'm not going to need boots. You better bring your boots. You better bring your lunch and your water, because there's nothing. And the other thing is, there's absolutely no shade. And even though we were at the beach, I would think March or April, it was just beaming down on us. So it is challenging, just different from the mountains.
Yeah. And what did you think? I meant to ask you this. I guess I'll ask you now since we're on the podcast. Did you purposely start at Klingman's and go to the beach, or how did you guys do your hike?
Well, we definitely went west to east. It's called the Mountains to Sea.
Okay.
And so we went, even though we did not, we went and hiked a few days, and then she went home, and another few days, and so on. We did it continue. We didn't jump around.
Okay. So you did it in one continuous line, and you did fit it, like your eastern terminus was Jockey's Ridge.
Definitely.
And to me, Jockey's Ridge, very first time I've been up to Jockey's Ridge and the Outer Banks was actually in February when I finished the 40-day hikes. And wow, what a surprise Jockey's Ridge was.
I know. It was a sand dune. It is a sand dune.
Unbelievable.
And when we finished the MST, remember this was 2011. It wasn't. I'm number 21, by the way. So that's
right. Yeah, she is number 21 out of. There's 120 something, maybe more completers now, because there's a lot of people that have completed the entire trail this year. So there might be 130,
right.
But you're number 21.
I'm number 21. So it was still a novelty. So when we got to Jockey's Ridge, we went to the visitor center, and the superintendent of the state park really embraced us and took a picture. And then he sent one of his staff to go up with us till the end.
Oh,
and take
wow.
pictures of us. So we were quite a celebrity. Now, when we finished the 40 hikes this year, nobody
Okay, now
cared.
in addition, people, she's completed the trail, and now you've also completed all of the 40 hikes.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
And part of the reason is the trail has really changed from the time I did it in 2010, 2011, and now. And even though the 40 hikes doesn't do the whole trail, there were so many sections once you got out of the mountains that I had done. So that was quite interesting. Different perspective.
And what were you going to say when you got to Jockey's Ridge on the 40th hike? Nobody cared. Is that what you said?
Exactly. There were so many people there. This was a different friend. I think we finished in April or so, or March. It's on my website. And there were so many people. We were just one of many.
So listen, you guys. Okay, this again, just a small little taste of what I'm going to call. I broke this episode down into like the hiker Danny, and now we're getting into hike leader Danny because that's what she says on her website. So not only are you an avid hiker where you go out and you do your own thing and with your hiking partners, but you also lead hikes currently for, well, okay, I say for the Carolina Mountain Club, but again, another one of your quotes. I said, well, who do you lead hikes for? And this is what Danny tells me on the phone. Well, the friends of this and the friends of that, the friends of something else. Then she goes, wait a minute, I have too many friends. So
That's true. That's true. I'm a sucker. Basically, any nonprofit that asks me if I have the time, I will lead a hike because I want to get people on the trail. And every one of these groups has got a different focus. And so I lead for Friends of the Smokies, which is the financial philanthropic partner of Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I lead for Friends of DuPont Forest, which is not on the MST, but it's the subject of my latest book. And we have a Camino group in Asheville. And
oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yes,
Awesome.
it is awesome. We help people who want to get on the Camino, answer questions. We have meetings, and we have created several hikes through Asheville to give people a feel as to what it would be like on the Camino, which is different from what it's like in the Smokies, for example.
Wow, that is really that okay. I'm going to talk to you offline more about that. That's
Okay.
actually that fascinates me. I'm interested in that. Yeah. Okay, what other friends you got out there? So, give people an example of like what it's like to go on a lead hike with Carolina Mountain Club, just so people, because we have people that that are listening that may have never hiked in a group. So give us a little idea what that's like.
Okay. Well, first of all, we're a friendly bunch of people. It's very important. You do not need to know anybody. We have our schedule on the web, and it breaks down to every hike, the leader with an email address, and where we meet, when we meet, and also we meet at a place that's very popular in Asheville, at the first meeting point. So you don't have to say, oh, I don't know where the trailhead is. Don't worry about that. We'll get you there. We carpool. And and all of what I'm saying, some of what I'm saying is not applicable to the COVID situation, but we've been around since 2000.
You work around it, yeah.
We've been around since 1923, so this is an exception rather than So we carpool, we get you to the trailhead, and then this is group hiking. So we expect you to stay with the group. There is the leader who knows where the trail is. He or she has scouted the hike, and that's very important. This is not, we put out a schedule 4 times a year. So we commit. Like right now, I have committed to hikes after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And we put out, and we have wonderful hike schedulers to make sure that if I lead a hike at DuPont, for example, on Sunday, there isn't somebody else leading another hike at DuPont on Wednesday. And we have somebody, so we have our leader in the front, a sweep, as we call it, in the back to make sure nobody gets lost. And we stop for breaks, for lunch, to go to the toilet. And let's remember that because so many people don't want to ask that question.
Yeah, that is true.
And we have a good time. We lead 4 hikes a week minimum.
And I'm going to make sure
all year round.
Yes, in the show notes, I'm going to put a link to the Carolina Mountain Club,
Please.
so people can have access to that. Where you can join the club if you want to. I think you can see the hikes whether you're a member or not.
You can see the hikes,
Okay.
but you have to. I mean, it's only $20 a year. You know,
Yeah.
It's the cheapest entertainment you will have.
Listen, it'll cost you more to get to the trailhead by the time you stop and get your coffee and everything else.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and really, I lead hikes, but there is another whole area of CMC which maintains trails. We maintain over 400 miles of trail. We maintain the 8 parts of the AT, the MST, and a bunch of other trails. So we really have to focus.
And I want to give a huge shout out to the Carolina Mountain Club because Western North Carolina just recently got hit with a huge storm. And I have been seeing updates. I mean, the Carolina Mountain Club is on it. They are clearing trails. They're letting you guys know in the Pisgah National Forest which trails are opening. So I just personally want to thank everybody that is out there helping clean up those trails because I can't remember the name of the storm. I just forgot the name of it. Went through Fred. Yeah, went through Western North Carolina. I mean, flooded Black Mountain Campground like I've never seen before. So thank you to everybody that is out there working all those trails. And Danny, I do not want to end this episode without talking about you're also a writer. So you're a hiker, you're a hike leader, and you're an outdoor writer. And I want to talk, I want to give you the floor to kind of tell us what your 5 books are and maybe the topics of each book. And we'll leave the Mountains of Sea Trail book to the end there. So tell us about, you've got 5 books and a couple of them are guidebooks, right?
Right. That's how I started. After I'd been here for a while, here in Asheville and hiked, I wrote a guidebook. I wrote a proposal to a publisher for a guidebook called Hiking the Carolina Mountains. And lo and behold, it was accepted. I had never written a book before, written a lot of technical papers on my job, and also when I came here, wrote articles. But anyway, I wrote 2 hiking guides, turn-by-turn guides for the area. Think of Asheville as the center. One called Hiking the Carolina Mountains, and 2 years later, Hiking North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains. And they're kind of different because Hiking the Carolina Mountains includes South Carolina. And the Blue Ridge Mountains is only North Carolina, but it goes east quite a bit.
And you say those are still doing pretty well, right?
They're still selling. It's amazing.
I love it.
I love it too. So they're doing quite well. They were published by literally a mom and pop publisher, and then recently they retired and sold the books, sold all of their inventory to University of Georgia Press. So UGA is still publishing the books. And then when I thought about doing the MST, that was the only place where I said from the beginning, I am going to write a book about it because it's more a travel narrative. It is not a guidebook. and as to what I found on the trail and the history on the trail and the minute things that you would never find as you are zipping through in your car or even zipping through on a bike. So I wrote that, but I was walking and taking notes, which ain't easy. But after I finished the trail and started writing the book, I went back with my car and double checked a lot of things.
And that is the Mountains of Sea Trail across North Carolina, and then it's walking 1,000 miles through wildness, culture, and history. I love it.
Thank you. It's published by the History Press, which I must give a shout out to because they're great, and they allowed me to have colored pictures. And then I knew while I was doing all of this, I knew that 2016 was coming, which was the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service. And completely coincidentally, is also the 100th anniversary of North Carolina State Parks. And while I was doing all these other books, every time we traveled, we had to go into a national park unit. And when I mean unit, I mean like a battlefield or a historic home, et cetera, et cetera. I really spent time understanding why it was a national park. And so I wrote a book on my journey through national parks of the South being defined as the same way as the National Park Service defines it. And so that allowed me the excuse to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, because guess what? There are national parks there.
Hey, sounds good to me.
Exactly.
And that one's the Forest Alligators Battlefields,
which kind of describes what I found.
Forest Alligators and
Battlefields. Lots and lots of battlefields. And recently, I fell in love with DuPont Forest, which has a really interesting history. It's only been a forest partially since 97 and fully since 2020. Since 2000. And quite a few people who are CMC members worked for DuPont Corporation in Brevard.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. And so I'm thinking, these people aren't getting any younger. I should really talk to them about what it was like to work at DuPont. And most of them came from other places. And from that evolved DuPont Forest History.
Wow. Yes. Okay, I got to get that book.
You do, definitely. It's also published by the History Press.
So we have to meet because you have to sign these books. I'm telling you.
That'd be wonderful. Now. Yes, absolutely.
So listen, you guys have got a taste of, hiker deity. I mean, phenomenal hike leader, currently out leading hikes. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Wait, is today? No, tomorrow's Wednesday. Are you leading a hike tomorrow?
I'm not leading. I'm going.
Okay. You're going. There you go.
Because you're going to ask me what I'm working on next, right?
That's right. Your project, it's no small project. So tell us what you got going on.
Well, there are two things. My hiking project is CMC came up with a list of 100 favorite hikes of the Smokies and the North Carolina Blue Ridge. And it's a map. I wish I could show it to you people. It's a map with 100 hikes, which is basically the area that CMC hikes. You have to do all of the hikes. Some of them are very easy. Some of them are very difficult. This was approved as a challenge, a CMC challenge in October. So all the hikes have to start in October. You can't go back and say 15 years ago I did this hike.
Okay,
it doesn't count
because somebody will believe me. Oh, I did that 20 years ago.
Exactly. So that's my hiking project.
So what number are you on out of 100?
Tomorrow, if all goes well, I'll be up to number 30.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
But there's a lot of hard hikes or hard to get to hikes. So this project will take me several years.
Now, is Sharon going with you, or
No. These
Okay.
are other people that
Okay.
are doing this with me. She lives in Charlotte. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah. All right. So that's your hiking project. And now
Right.
you've got, you were just at, Little Birdie told me you were at the Mountains to Sea Trail corporate offices I called the corporate office the other day.
Friends of the MST research. Yeah.
That's a research zone. So you were there doing some research for your current project.
Right. Which is, I'm writing the history of CMC.
Unbelievable.
Which will turn 100 in 2023. So I was at the Friends of the MST office because the MST and the CMC are quite intertwined. I mean, it's intertwined with a lot of things, but that's what I was doing there, But it's not all history, library research, because I insist for myself on going the places that I write about.
Well, I cannot wait for that to come out.
Yeah, me too.
I know, yeah. And all of Dani's books can be found on her website. You guys, I'm going to make sure everything we talked about today is in the show notes. Her blog, I just called it a website. It's a blog.
Well, it has more than just a blog.
Yeah, and all 5 of your books can be found there with descriptions. All of your accolades there at the bottom. I think you were voted like one of the top 25 blogs. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And I want to say to you right now, thank you so much. Long overdue. We have got to meet in person, and I'm going to turn it over to you. How do you want to sign off for us? What have you got for the listeners?
Well, what I'd like to say is no place is too far to walk if you have the time. And that's my motto.
All right, say that for us again.
No place is too far to walk if you have the time.
All right, people, soak that in. Dani, thank you
Thank you so
much.
much, Jester. It was so much fun. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Chat soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dani, for joining me on the podcast. As you all heard, Dani is far more than a hiker, hike leader, and outdoor writer. I hope all of you go over and subscribe to her blog at hikertohiker.net and consider a purchase of one of her books. Over the summer, I purchased her book about the Mountains to Sea Trail, and I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed. There is so much detail and history regarding the MST in that book. I have even found myself reading it more than once, taking notes, and marking points in the book I want to remember. As always, you could go to the hikingradionetwork.com and click on the Jester Section Hiker Show to find all of today's show notes, pictures, and links mentioned in this episode. If you find value in what we do here at the network, please consider leaving us a donation by clicking on any one of the donate buttons found on our website. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be safe out there, and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way. If you ever get lost, or if the trail leads you astray, the music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word, and you beat the drum. Round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets in these neighborhoods, head over the river